Daryl Anderson. Beverly Raymond. Christopher Smith. Ellen Clark. Richard Wyckoff. Jerry LeBeau. Melvin Getwood. We have a quorum.
Before I start the meeting, if we can, I'd like to welcome Mr. Wyckoff back to the board. I think for how many times he has. And if you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
My name is Richard Wyckoff. I served on the board probably about 10 years back in '05. So we had a great run in those 10 years. I'm retired from Coca-Cola. I'm doing, I call it my other job. I do transportation for Goodyear, heavy equipment, hazardous materials. But I'm happy to be here tonight, looking forward to work with the EDC board. I might not be here for a long period of time, but I look forward to see what's going on, what you're doing, and how can I help achieve your goal. And I look forward to working with our new CEO, Mr. Terry Stokes. So I look forward to working with everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Wyckoff. Mr. Anderson, could we get an invitation and pledge?
God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to work for your city. Help us to represent in a way that will be pleasing. Give us insight to make the best decisions possible as we continue to move forward in this great city of Port Arthur. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
You all had a chance to review and the minutes from the following meeting. Are there any questions or comments? Can I get a motion in a second, please?
So move.
Second.
Presentation, none. Communication, none. Speaker, none. Report, CEO report. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good evening, everyone. I'll start out with just updating you on the corporation's finances. At the risk of having Secretary Raymond throw something at me because she does not like handouts, regrettably, I have one for you this evening that just arrived this afternoon, and that's our fund balance. That should be at your desk, and I think everyone is aware that we do not generate our own fund balance. That's done for us by the city. And so we got the latest one this afternoon. Certainly take a few minutes to update that. To review it. But you see where we started the fiscal year, where we were as of the close of 23. January and February are still open on their end. Hopefully that'll be closed out very soon. In having conversation with Treasurer Clark the other day, one thing that the board may want to consider in terms of a safety net is perhaps as we go into budgeting for the next fiscal year, which will kick off in late April, early may want to look at the fund balance being more close to zero and giving ourselves continued time to get up to speed and get our arms around, officially closing out everything relative to the press building, as well as just kind of giving our overall expenses a chance to breathe. And then look at the numbers. Like I say, they're a couple of months behind, but just assume that they're reasonably close to where we are. Kind of look at that as kind of a cushion, rainy day fund, as opposed to starting budgeting from that point, only to find out, heaven forbid, that all of that really wasn't available to us. And now we've spent and probably spent into 23, 24, unintended, but nonetheless started spending money down the line. Treasurer Clark, yes, ma'am.
The thought process behind that is the fact that we have closed out the construction phase of that building, but the incidentals and the internal materials, we have not closed that out. And it doesn't look as though we'll be able to close that out until the end of this fiscal year. Okay, so we're not exactly sure where we are with those incidentals. So that's part of that thought process, to give us a cushion just in case there's something out there we don't know anything about. Okay.
As I mentioned to you last month, one of the things that we may need to give serious consideration to, and I've entered into conversations with the city about the concept of us doing our own limited purchasing and paying our own bills. A very limited thing, not trying to bring everything over, because that would be a shock to the system. If we did that, we would still adhere to all of the existing rules and guidelines. Nothing would change other than we would take care of our own paying of our bills and our own purchasing. Had a discussion this past Thursday with the city manager, the two assistant city managers, and the head of finance, where I broached the issue with them. As a result of that conversation, we're going to take maybe a two-pronged approach. Plan A, which we're going to implement immediately, is to have our financial person be allowed to take a deeper dive in terms of training on the financial system that the city uses. Okay? It's a fairly new system, and although there had been initial upfront training, it's been brought to my attention by the city that there is more detailed meat on the bone training that can be provided. So in May, we will commence with that. That will be followed up with the assurance that we have access to all of the modules that the program provides, that we're using the same modules that they're using down the street in terms of accounts payable and purchasing. That process, once that is done, will be monitored going into the next budgetary cycle, so over the summer months and going into the early autumn. As I sit in front of you this evening, I'm excited about that. As I was telling Treasurer Clark the other day, more training is always better than less training. That said, I'm still not sure that that will solve the issue of making sure that we are taking care of vendors being paid on time, and that at any given moment, I can tell you with assuredness where we stand financially. And that's the big concern that I have, because we are reliant upon other folks' systems, wonderful systems as they may be. They may not be structured in the way that this corporation needs them to be structured in order for you all to meet your fiduciary responsibility, which requires me to be able to give you up-to-date current information at any given time. Can't do that. You do not have a financial report in your packet because the folks that provide the data to us haven't closed out their month. So it would be the same exact report that we provided you last month, except for updated bills, which would look like they haven't been paid. They may have been paid, but the system hasn't been closed out. Okay? So again, I'm all for additional training, and I certainly will make sure staff takes advantage of that. But again, I may come back to you and say, well, okay, great, we now have all the access, had all the training, but we're still reliant upon other folks to pay our bills, issue our bills, so forth and so on, and generate our reports. I'm happy that you have a fund balance report. It was looking around 4 o'clock that you weren't going to have one, so you do have one. But again, and I know that all of you all know this, I'm just the one getting up to speed and learning this, that we are heavily reliant upon others to provide us our financial data. Trying to get my arms around that because I'm used to being able to, spit out a report at a drop of a hat so that I know, as well as the board knows, where we stand at any given moment. Not there as we sit here tonight, but hopefully between ourselves and the city, we've got a plan to move forward step by step. And I certainly will keep you updated.
What percentage of our monies have we used on the budget so far this year?
Mr. President, I hesitate to give you a solid number because I simply can't. If we could, let me make a note of that, and as the city gets closer to closing out January, let me update the board. We won't wait until April. I'll just give you a written report, just send it through email. And then certainly as they update to February. Now, again, you may be thinking, well, wait a second, then we'll be into April. I know that, but again, we're dependent upon the speed at which they work their system. So what you have in front of you is where we stood on December 31st. And, I will endeavor to work with them to get things updated as quickly as possible. But we're at their beck and call. Yeah. Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Just one question. I heard you to say that if the system were to change, then we would get training on procurement. That is a major concern anytime you go into dealing with vendors. So would it be a limited amount if we take over procurement versus what the city is doing? Would it be a division, or would we take over procurement for the EDC?
Great question. We would still be, the training would be on the system that they use. So our folks have had some limited exposure. This would just be a much deeper dive. Okay. So we would still be using all the same things that they're using. Okay. Same reports, same data. It's just, instead of, as simple as to put it as simple, instead of the bill going there, it came here. Okay. Instead of the check being written there, it was written here and then entered into the ledger, and then all of that fed back into their system.
But the staff person with EDC would be up to speed on all of the guidelines.
Correct.
Dealing with procurement.
Right. We will still be adhering to them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Other questions? And just to put in a bonus, Mr. President, duly noted, I wish I could provide you that information, but let me just do it in a kind of a mid-month report as soon as they close out.
Fine.
Okay. All righty. Any other questions on where we are financially? Okay. Wanted to just update you on where I am in executing the 90-day plan that I provided to you all back in December. You have an update in your packet of the stakeholder meetings that I've had to date, as well as those that are scheduled that'll be coming in the next week or two. As we sit here on March 6th, what I've decided to do, although all of these meetings are important, I genuinely want to meet these folks. I wouldn't have put them down here if I didn't think that it was, relevant or necessary. However, I do feel that at this point, I have enough feedback from stakeholders as well as yourselves that I can start crafting the high-level strategic plan pending your approval of the strategic priorities upon which that plan would be based upon. So all that to say that I'm winding down the meetings, and they'll just continue being spread out over the spring and summer. but switching my focus now to starting to craft the document. And I anticipate having the first draft for your review for your April meeting. That will then provide you opportunity to review, provide feedback with the goal of finalizing the document and publicizing it to the world at your approval in your May meeting. So chapters will start to be crafted, and like I say, draft will be provided to you. Get your feedback on that, update it with the goal of having it finalized and in your hands for approval by May. Okay. And just a reminder, that then will feed into organizational alignment and staffing. Once we've finalized and agreed upon the overall strategy and vision for the corporation, that allows myself to then put together, okay, what does the staff organization need to look like in order to successfully accomplish the strategic plan? So I'm well aware that in some cases we have holes. I understand that. But to not get ahead of myself, let me put the plan together, again, get everyone's feedback leading to approval, and then that will allow us to speak with articulation as to what overall staffing needs to look like for success. Question, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, when you initially did your engagement spreadsheet, I thought it was pretty aggressive for 90 days, okay? But I have a question, because if we're working on our strategic plan on where it is we take our businesses for the future of the city, you haven't met with like the leadership of the people that are at our business park to know where it is they plan to go, or what is it they plan to do, or what they need us to do so that they'll be able to grow. There are a lot of these stakeholders here that I would have thought that you really needed to meet with in order to be able to incorporate that into our strategic plan. Okay, do we get any input into that?
Yeah, you absolutely do. So let me double back, make sure that we're all on the same page.
Okay.
The strategic plan will be in draft format for the next couple of months. It's being crafted simultaneously while I continue to meet with folks. But what I said, probably inarticulate, is that I no longer want to delay starting to draft it until meetings are exhausted. So I'll still be meeting with folks, and beyond that, even when it's approved, it's a living document. And so there will be times as I continue to meet with folks over the summer, that new data comes in, I may come to you and say, in section such and such, or chapter so-and-so, I'm proposing that we make these modifications based on additional information that I've received. It will be a living document, but on our way to even finalizing it, I'm continuing to meet with folks. It's just that, it's like I say, I've gotten to the point where I think I've got enough meat on the bone where I can at least start drafting a draft.
All right, let me make sure I understand. Okay, so we're going to get a draft version of it at our next meeting.
Yes.
And okay, and if I'm hearing you correctly, it's going to be a strategic plan that is done at an extremely high level.
Correct.
And then we're going to start crafting it down. Okay, do we have a final goal as to when we're going to actually get that plan in a format that we can utilize? Is it going to be complete by the beginning of the next budget year?
The final strategic plan you all will vote on in May. You'll get a draft in April. That we'll use that to start speaking into, providing feedback, so forth and so on. I'll update that and provide a final. I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, what you are addressing, Madam Treasurer, is the tactical plan, the tactical tasks needed to implement the strategic plan. That's the next step. I can't jump to the tactical until I know what my board has approved strategically. But the short answer is yes, because we need that tactical plan to put the budget together, so they'll be running in tandem. It'll be a busy summer.
And developing the strategic plan, will you also include some of these stakeholders I know that you have ideas and you've gotten those ideas from us and others, but as you develop,
As well as the stakeholders.
as well as the
Yes, sir.
stakeholders. So I guess the question is, will you draft a strategic plan in isolation, or will you have a committee to draft it, to assist you in drafting that plan?
Knowing how busy everyone is, I think it best to lean on my experience of having produced about 100 of these things over the last 4 decades in terms of just getting the draft down. Now, that's the elimination of vacuum, because that draft then goes to everybody for feedback.
Yes, sir, I understand, but I was not necessarily raising a question for this group or committee to do that. I didn't know if you would include some of the stakeholders as a part of drafting the plan.
To the extent that they have spoken into and given me the ideas, what just works best for me is, now that I put this in black and white, I go back to that stakeholder. Did I hear you correctly? Is this what you had in mind? If not, let's talk about it as I'm putting this draft together, as opposed to a formal committee. I do understand what you're saying.
I'm following you. That's input, and I'm just looking for input.
Okay.
Not necessarily my input.
Yes, sir.
But a wide variance of input.
Right, absolutely. Which was the impetus, sir, of the meeting. You
I
got it.
understand.
We were on the same page. Yes, sir. Other questions? Okay. That's a nice segue into the strategic priorities. They are listed in your non-consent part, but I'll just read them out. And as I go through this, I want to reiterate again, and I know probably at this point ad nauseum, these were not my ideas. They are my best job of extracting what I felt I heard as I was having all of these various meetings and trying to condense them into high-level concepts. Attracting new entrepreneurs and businesses, community development, developing and implementing new branding, marketing, and messaging for the corporation, developing homegrown entrepreneurs, downtown revitalization, increasing the inventory of available housing, continued development of Jade Avenue, Highway 73, and Spur 93 industrial parks, strengthening and improving the viability of Port Arthur's existing small businesses, entrepreneurship inside the press building, and lastly, workforce and youth development. This was a carryover from your last meeting, and since that time, I've had a chance to have a good conversation with Secretary Raymond, and out of that conversation came kind of a tickler to me, just to remind everyone, or not remind you, maybe I'm saying it for the first time, it isn't necessarily the case that we would be the lead entity in all of these strategies. It could be that we're supporting some other agency that has charge for that. But all of these are relevant to the overall mission of this corporation. So, for example, we may not be the lead in housing. We may be just supporting strategically someone else. But housing or lack thereof certainly impacts our ability to attract new businesses to the area. So that's why they're interconnected. But I don't want anyone to assume that, oh, we will be the lead for all of this, because we may not have enough time or people for that. Okay. And like I say, you will take those up a little bit later for approval, which then allows me to then know what it is that I'm putting that document together on. And where we stand in terms of incentive programs, we currently have 6 packages that we are working on and putting together to bring to the board for eventual action. They are Nietzsche's Management Services, Project Lucky Gold, which we discussed last time around, SIP Services LLC, Speedy Mart number 2, Spindle Top Concrete Inc., and Vessel Cleaning Services. All of these are at various stages of data collection in the process. Once we have completed and double-checked packages for you, they will be brought to the board. Okay. Let's talk a little bit. One thing that I wanted to update you on, I had wanted to give you photostats of the check and the signed lease, but let me update you that we do have a signed lease from the credit union and 1 year's worth of rent, which we have deposited. They are putting their plans together for their ribbon cutting. One thing that I want to just kind of toss out to you to consider that it might not be a bad idea if we connect our overall official ribbon cutting in conjunction with theirs and have the two major events going on at the same time, which allows for shared resources, shared timing, so forth and so on. I don't have a date for you. They are just beginning to have those conversations. But I did want to throw that out.
Okay, I have another question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the signed lease that you have with the credit union, okay, is it basically still in the same format as the one that we reviewed when we had the presentation from the credit union? Or were there any changes that we need to be made aware of?
Only the changes that you approved that night, which was their request to have just 1 or 2 lines, and Charlie and his team did make those modifications. There was nothing other substantive. Speaking of ribbon cuttings, let me just veer from my notes. Dr. Raymond and I, in our meetings on the culinary program and the bistro, in our last meeting, she mentioned to me that she is putting her plans together for the formal ribbon cutting on the Industrial Trade Center. She needs the weather to kind of stabilize because she needs to repave the parking lot. She assured me that we would be at the top of the list of invites, and I think best guess we're probably looking at a May or June timeframe in terms of her getting everything together. But I did want to throw that out and just bring you up to date on where that stands. Okay. In your packet, I gave you a write-up on where we stand on our workforce programs. We found out this morning, as it says in your packet, we have 3 folks currently in our nursing program. 2 of the students have passed the written portion of their work, and they will take the skills component on the 24th of this month. We have 1 student who is awaiting to schedule both the written and skills exam, and they've been going like gangbusters. So for my 2 cents worth, I'm confident that they're going to succeed. This information just came into us this morning, but you have the foundational information in your packet. Our next class begins on the 21st, and that'll be an evening class scheduled to complete on the 25th of April. As of this evening, we have 1 student enrolled. As I mentioned in the packet, as we go into the next budgetary cycle, although the CNA and CDL programs for the foreseeable future will be our flagship programs, it may be a good time as we go into budgeting to start looking at maybe bringing on support of some additional high demand careers. For example, the one that I gave you in the write-up, the certified medical assistant. Again, not to in any way, shape, or form change our current programs. They would always be continue to be supportive, But like I say, perhaps just take a look at some additional programs that industry, especially industry in this area, are starting to seek and looking for talent. And so that's a conversation that I'll continue to have with you as we go forward, and looking at, are there additional things that we might want to support in conjunction with our existing partners, most notably Lamar.
One question regarding that.
Yes, ma'am.
The CNA program, according to your report, there was only 3 students enrolled in the program.
Correct.
What did we do to advertise to let the public know that this program exists?
And short answer, not enough. I basically use the existing programs and processes, because there's only so much you can change on the fly as a new guy. I can assure you that going forward, as we start to rebuild and overhaul the website, as we get more into social media than we are presently, there will be an infinite, compared to where we are now, more avenues for us to get the word out. It's just not where it should be, and that therefore affects enrollment. We also had to, for budgetary purposes, we had to also modify how many folks that we could offer that to make sure that we weren't deficit spending. But that's a long answer to your question, Madam Secretary. Not enough, and more will be done in the future. In your pack, oh, I'm sorry, was the question? Yes, sir.
The question, on the training piece, you did say you will be looking at doing additional training for high demand career jobs?
Yes, sir.
Because I hadn't heard that. But I know it's critical for the citizen of Port Arthur, the youth, to have more than truck driving. Truck driving is important, but there's a lot of other skill sets that's in demand for refineries, as well as if you look at Toll 99, all the warehouse expansion, forklift, supervisors, supervision, managers, all those jobs are available. And I think Lamar may be an opportunity, even the school district. How do we improve the training at those key locations to provide that skill set? Because I think they miss out if they don't have that skill set.
Yes, sir. The first step is to incentivize and to support and have partnerships. So similar to the programs that we have currently, what I'm going to be proposing that we look at is also providing funding to expanding into other areas that we presently aren't in. Can't do everything because there's a limited amount of sales tax, but we've got to at least look to make sure that we are providing industry what it needs, as well as continue to take care of the existing programs. Sure.
Saying that, what programs do we have in place? We have the CDL, CNA, pipe fitters, digital academy, digital
right.
workforce.
Correct. And they're going well, and they're funded. But again, it's probably, like I say, especially with the new guy in town, probably not a bad idea to start looking at, do we need to expand this into other high demand areas? Just to make sure that we can look industry in the eye and vice versa, that we're trying to meet the workforce demands.
One more question, I'm going to let it go. Do we have any type of measurement in place where we can have a scorecard to know exactly how we're performing?
In terms of present metrics?
Yes.
I don't know. I think that is kept. Now, what I can't answer is it kept in the way that I would like it to be kept, in the way that I would want it reported. I'm not sure if this is what you mean, but I want to know, what is our return on investment? How many people are getting their certificate, sticking with the program? How long are they staying employed? Are our employers liking the product that they're getting?
Right.
And all of that I will be putting into place in conjunction with potentially expanding the program. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, sir, just, bear with me. I have to make sure it exists in the format that we need to make some decisions.
Right, okay.
Okay, Mr. Wyckoff, I've been asking for that since I became a member of the board, okay? It exists in the format that we know how many people have been in the program, we know how many people have passed the program. So therefore, we know that success level. We don't know if those people are actually employed
Right, that's what I wanted.
in that area. We don't have that data yet, okay? So that is something that they're going to have to work on. And like he said, return on investment, that's what I'm really big at. I want to know if we're spending these dollars, what is the community actually getting for those dollars? And we're not there yet, but they are working on it.
Okay. I would just say that it's critical to know that because we're just spending money, not knowing what's coming. Are we helping the citizen or the youth,
Are we helping the employers?
all the employees? Or they're not searching other areas for that help versus
Right.
here?
You got it.
That's the only way you're gonna know. That's all
And,
I'm going.
and if we're not, and they're importing talent from other areas, that doesn't do Port Arthur any good.
True.
Other questions on the subject? Okay. In your packet, you have two schedules, one showing you the schedule for this year's sales tax training workshops, and the other one on the schedule of basic economic development workshop. If by chance you've never had the opportunity to take either of those or both, I would just, for my 2 cents worth, highly encourage you to do so. And in both cases, if the board felt it would be more convenient to have the classes brought to us, I have reached out to both entities, and for a nominal fee, they will just come to us and customize either the sales training and or the basic economic development workshop. So if you decide, and if there's enough mass to do that, to make it worthwhile to bring someone in, you certainly have that option too, and I can certainly facilitate that. And also in your packet, just a reminder of the annual meetings for the International Economic Development Council, which will be in Dallas this year, as well as TEDC's annual, which happens to be in Houston this year. Because of those things, and IEDC being in the state and TEDC being relatively close to us, it might be worthwhile for the ambassadors of the organization, which is you, to consider when we go into the budget cycle, setting funding aside for you all to attend those opportunities en masse.
Mr. CEO, are you planning on attending both of these?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't get much choice. I have to facilitate some of the workshops, so hard for me to get out of it. And then, directors, I think that is, oh, no, there was one other item, security. As you know, back at your December meeting, there was a request, and probably a request predating December, to perhaps beef up the availability of security for the nights that you're having your regular meetings and/or special meetings. Provided an update in January that we were reviewing that for both this facility as well as what it might take for the press building to increase security. In February, I reported to you that it was just a non-starter, getting our arms around the finances of the press building to then try and put a 50-some-odd thousand additional tag. So that's something we'll revisit in terms of increasing its security. But in terms of providing security for these meetings and special meetings, certainly you saw that this evening. That was well under 5,000. It's an individual. It's a contract that if you decide at any time you don't want that additional security and you want to put that money back in the coffers, you certainly can do that. Not going to be a big strain one way or the other, but at least now you have that peace of mind. And now we're working on, we thought we'd have the exterior lighting up for you as a big surprise tonight, but they needed a little more time, so it certainly will be nice and bright in April as it turns dark. And then lastly, there was to be a joint meeting between this entity and the City Council tomorrow. That was postponed. But I will be making my quarterly update to them because it is March, and I had promised them at the end of each quarter I'd make my update. So I'll just go ahead and do that and provide that in written format. And then the two entities can revisit the idea of having a joint meeting perhaps later in this year. And with that, Mr. President, that completes my report. Thank you, sir.
Questions?
One question. I noticed that review of the agenda. So exactly what will be placed on the agenda for the joint meeting?
Had not been fully crafted for my part. In terms of my update, it'll be almost verbatim what I provided tonight, because that gives them an update on what my activities have been and what the corporation is doing. In terms of what they might request, I guess we'll cross that bridge whenever we put it back on the schedule. There's no agenda to go over because the meeting got canceled. But I can at least tell you what would have been on my part, the same thing I'm going over tonight.
Did the board input exactly what they would like to? Because when the last agenda meeting, we had a joint meeting. The board was aware of exactly what was being discussed at that time, and we all was on the same page. And so this time, I don't recall if we did have the meeting tomorrow, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was canceled, exactly what we was going to discuss.
Ma'am, I can only tell you what my portion of the agenda was, and I think you just articulated it very well. That probably led to the postponement. So let's assume that whenever the discussion comes back up, take a step back and develop that agenda the same way as you just mentioned that was done previously.
The questions? Consent agenda items, review, discussion, possible action regarding entering to a performance agreement with Saigon Plaza LLC. May I get a motion in a second, please?
Excuse me, Mr. President. That is still as it turns out, undergoing legal review. So we aren't going to ask you to take an action tonight. We'll get the legal review wrapped up and then bring it back on the next agenda.
So we're going to have a discussion? Nothing? Okay.
No, sir.
We just, that'll be brought back then, okay. Non-consent, review, discussion, and possible action regarding entering into a workforce training agreement with Lamar College, Port Arthur, for a commercial driving certification program for a commercial driver's license, A and B. Can I get a motion? Second? I have a motion and second. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Can I get a vote? I'm sorry.
Okay. Exactly what is this pertaining to? Doesn't Lamar currently provide us the services of CDL training?
This is an update to that agreement.
Okay.
The old one expired. This is just pro forma.
Okay, and there were no major changes to the new agreement? It was just verbatim as the old one? And
Yes,
our
ma'am.
one is renewing it? Okay.
Changes due to the fact we had training last year regarding updates of the CDL permit, so is that not included?
The monies were, the monies for sure.
Uh, yeah, m-
But you can see it, if you don't mind.
no, absolutely.
Sure. So I believe the only minor change to what you have in front of you to what was done in the past is the way that they're paid out. Because I think we're not structured this way so that half is paid out after their theory portion of the training is over with. And then once they've passed that theory portion, then they get the second payout. It eliminates us having to lose a lot, after enrollment. Before it was paid out in 3 sections, and we would lose a lot after enrollment. We were losing money that way. So this reduced that risk. So they get paid out twice now.
Other questions?
Okay, Ms. Mueller, so total funding, just to be clear, that hasn't changed, just the structure.
Good?
I would just say it's still the same total. It's just split 50-50. It's the same amount of money. It's just paid in phase 1, phase 2.
Next is review this. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Against? Motion passed. Review, discussion, and possible action regarding amending the wage and status regarding the PAEDC 2023 Youth Program, Employment Program. Got us first and second. Any questions or concerns? Good.
What are the changes? That was a recommendation to take it up?
Yes, you hit the nail on the head. We did, in the winter, we conducted some research and sat down with some employers, and basically we were just a little out of step with hourly wage to the point where potential students were looking at other alternatives because this just wasn't going to pay enough. So what we've basically done in terms of restructuring, Director Wyckoff, is bump up the hourly salary, limit the amount of people so that we're still spending the same total amount of money that was budgeted for this fiscal year. And then as we go into next fiscal year with that new wage, we can look at if we want to put more in that pot for this particular program. So we're staying within the fiscal adjustment for this year, but providing the folks a more reasonable wage.
Are we having a lot of participation from students? If we are, what's that now?
That's in the eye of the beholder. I say yes, but that's from my perspective of, just getting my arms around things. I may feel differently as I start to study the return on investment and the long-term metrics. I certainly, open that up to board members that have watched the program longer than myself.
And the only reason I ask that question, when you're up the ante, you should be more participation coming from students to be involved in the program. So if we're going to up the ante, we're not growing. So I don't know. That's why I'm asking the question.
As it relates to this program, what would happen in the whole idea is paid training. So the idea is you get a graduating senior, you pay for their training, and the idea is for them to stay working for that company. So it's not really like a summer job program. So it's more of I'm trying to introduce you to this, and we want you to stay there because that's what the training dollars are for. So it's saving the employer the money for that they would spend for training and allowing the young people to get a feel for the job market. As it relates to participation, in the past, we've had great participation. We filled all the slots. We had a slow year, of course, coming out of everybody's slow year. I'm tired of saying COVID, but it was COVID. And so we had a slow year coming out of that, but in past, we hadn't had any issue filling all of those slots, and also a number of young people retaining jobs as well. So it wasn't a revolving door. So yes, it's been successful. Yes, it's had a number of people in it. My only question can I just ask my question as well? I was concerned about us reducing the number of people going in, but I see you trying to stay within a fiscal budget for that because I didn't want to lose anyone. It's only 20 people anyway that's going into the program. You know, that was my concern, reducing the number of people that can get into it.
I understand. And like I say, when we go into next fiscal year, as we do the budgetary cycle and we evaluate the return on investment, maybe we go back up those numbers, but just understanding that we would require more in the bucket. But again, I'm trying to practice what I preach. If we're trying to get our arms around the current bucket, it's hard to do that when you're also expanding a line item.
Okay. You answered my question. I just wanted to know, is it going up? You know, if it is, we want to continue that direction. I'd just like to see the number, that's all. Because the numbers tell us if it's working or not. If you don't see the numbers, we got to make adjustments or discontinue, you know.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just like Ms. Anderson said, that it was an issue, but the main issue that I think the last time we had the student program, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the workforce program, we more geared toward the school district and the city. And I think if you want the program to really work, we need to go outside. And I say nothing wrong with that. Industrial or other companies that would be interested in hiring it when you're talking about $18 to $20 an hour, which I have no problem paying a student that amount. But just make sure that if some kind of way that we know exactly what companies they will get a report of our return and see exactly what companies that the students will be working at.
A part of the assessment, yes, ma'am.
I get a motion? What's that? Vote? Against? All in favor? Aye. Against? Motion carried. Next is review, discussion, and possible action regarding policy of board member communication with corporation general counsel. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Got a motion and second. Any questions or concerns?
I would like to explain why.
You want somebody to explain?
Yeah, why? Why we want to make a change when it's concerning to you? I'm talking about the lawyer, right?
Right.
And based on, was it an issue of us confronting the lawyer about certain things?
This is not my idea, so I don't.
So I'm trying to get the understanding if I'm a board member and I have a legal question, I should be able to ask the lawyer his opinion. Maybe I'm talking about from old school, being on the board, but has always been the direction we went for years. So why we want to change it?
Mr. Wyckoff, this is a second visit to this item. We talked about this procedure, I think, last time, and we said, as it's written, we didn't want to approve it. But I am of the understanding, now that I think more about it, and after I heard Charlie give his input as to how we're charged, that we don't really need a procedure and we don't really need any changes. All we need to do as a board is understand, okay, if we are actually conducting the business of the corporation, it's okay for you to call Charlie, okay? And if that's the case, we don't need a new procedure, okay? All we need is for our board of directors to understand, okay, that it's the business of the corporation. So I'm with you.
Right.
I'm old school in saying if a board member needs to contact the lawyer, they should be free to do so.
Right. Because as a board member, I served 10 years. It's one of the process we did execute. If I had a question about a project, I want to make sure we're going in the right direction. I would call the lawyer and say, hey, give me a ruling. Are we wrong? Or are we out of line? Or we need to, how do we address this? Are we heading in the right direction? What is the law? Because all board members not as knowledgeable of all of the law. So that's why we have an attorney. That's why we hired an attorney, so he can keep us in line. And I would expect our attorney to do that for the board. We're all not lawyers. You know, we got different types of jobs we do. So I think I need to have him. If I want to ask him a question about something I'm not sure about, I want to make sure we're in the right direction. If you don't have that, you know, you have to have that.
Yeah, and again, I don't think we need a policy, but I don't think nothing wrong with giving the CEO the courtesy. If we have a question about something, that we can address it with him, and we don't feel comfortable with that answer, then we may go to the attorney. But we really don't need a policy in place to really, we as board members, we should know to go to CEO. We're not comfortable with his answer, then we go to Charlie to get clarification.
I can definitely support your posture there. I believe that we should give the CEO the courtesy of addressing the situation. And if he's unable to address it to our satisfaction, then we should be able to go to the attorney, but that should be the last resort.
And basically, that's all this document says is exactly what Mr. Getwood just said, what Dr. Getwood just said, is just to make sure that we're communicating and giving that respect due to the CEO before we bypass him and go directly to the attorney, because some things can be discussed and figured out without having to call the attorney. I do believe there are some things that you can.
And again, I understand that, but we don't need a policy to state that. That's all I'm saying.
Other questions, concerns? Can, Charlie, would we make a motion to remove this? Or do we need to do anything with it?
I mean, if the will of the board is to not adopt the policy, you can just move on to the next agenda item and take no action.
Okay. Okay. Next item is review, discussion, and possible action regarding EDC President appointed committee of 2 board members and Ms. Mueller to develop strategies for marketing the press building requested by myself. Can I get a motion? Got a second? Got a motion and a second to discuss it? This was my thoughts only. Since we started the press building, we have tenants in the press building, and expenditures on the press building, we're losing money rapidly every month. And I don't know what the last month was that we lost. Do you have an idea, Ms. Clark, how much we lost? We don't. I would say close to $16,000 probably. And summertime, it's going to be way worse. $20,000 easy with the light bills. And I'd just like to put this in a different direction than entrepreneurs, incubators, whatever. I'm into making money. The board and the way this was designed, I think, was to have small businesses come in. I understand that. And groom them for other businesses. And I feel like it's not working. I'd like to just get a couple committee persons, board members, Ms. Mueller, and see if we can, I don't say turn this around because it's not turnable. It has a separate direction altogether.
I would like to participate.
And I strongly disagree. And I'm going to explain why. How can we say that something is failing that we hadn't even had a chance to start working with? We haven't even, it's just finished. We haven't even had an opportunity to put anything in place that we planned to put in place but we're going to call it a failure already?
Well,
That's exactly what he said.
Okay.
It came out of his mouth.
Yeah, if I said it's a failure, that's what I meant. You know, it's like we had tenants in there that at really low rates. And that's not us. That was brought on to us. And but we did have people already that couldn't pay their rent. We did have tenants that had to be evicted. And the money bleed is not going to stop, no matter if I say it's a failure or not. It's going to continue to bleed. And if we continue, my opinion, to go down this path, the budget don't mean nothing compared to what we're going to be losing.
The only reason I would be interested in possibly putting a committee together, because we do have issues at the press building. Right now, we still don't have that bistro that we talked about. We have classroom that can seat at least 100 people that's not being occupied, and a conference area. And so I don't know, I'm sorry. Mr. Stokes, you can share with us what plans you have for the press building in regards to filling those vacancies that I just spoke about.
Can I have the floor first? Sure. I'm sorry. Okay, no problem. Okay, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Okay, we need a strategic plan. We need to know which direction we are going in before we go down a direction. We don't have a strategic plan that says where it is we're going to take that building or any other business unit that we have. And we need that in place before we go out there and actually start to find clientele. And that's one of the reasons why I keep asking the questions, when are we going to get that done? So that we'll be able to go out there and structure the tenants in that building and the income in that building in accordance with our strategic plan. We cannot go out there without a plan. And I'm just a quorum of one, okay? Right. I'm on this board, I'm just a quorum of one. But I ask you guys to have a little patience, and I'm the first one to tell you that's not my virtue. I tell him that all the time. Patience is not my virtue. But I do understand that we cannot go into this until we get a documented plan and we know exactly what it is we're going to put in that building, what are we going to utilize it for, and what are we going to do with all of our business parks and exactly what type of tenants we want. That's the whole idea of us getting the strategic plan.
Sounds good.
Right? And the main thing, that's what the reason I think he was bringing to the board is a strategic plan so that we can move forward. There is issues at the press building as well as the industrial park. So, and again, the strategic plan will be very important to the success of this corporation to move forward.
So we don't need to vote on that either, Charlie. We can just go about our way. Okay, discuss EDC financial rating requested by myself. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
For discussion and any concerns. All my concern was, I had a couple of calls after last month's meeting on the financial rating went down. Evidently, they watched it on social media or wherever they did. I don't know what they watched it on. And I just wanted to ask Mr. Stokes what he meant by it, where I can explain to him, or, you know.
Certainly. And my humble apologies for not being clear to the point that you did get those calls. So I apologize for that, President LeBeau. Simply put, as I mentioned to you last month, we are struggling to make sure that all of our bills are paid in a timely manner. I gave you a few examples last month. You kind of saw late fees. And we all know that if you're consistently paying 30, 60, 90 days, that gets reported, and over the long run, that can do damage to your overall credit rating. Are we about to go bankrupt? Of course not. But keep in mind that one of the charges of this corporation is to attract new businesses. They can do research too, very simple. So if I'm sitting down trying to attract some multinational, multi-billion-dollar company that has done more research on me than I've done on myself, at some point in the conversation, you're just going to simply ask, I'm just kind of curious, how come you can't pay your bills on time? So it's as simple as that. And as we've talked, we're trying to put things in place to try and rectify that. It's not going to be rectified tomorrow, but we're all, as a team, we're working on that. And that's really, sir, I'll admit now, certainly as we work towards getting things closed out for January and February, we'll do an update, and I certainly will provide that information, like I say, probably in a mid-month report, written report. But at a very high level, we are obviously going to take a ding if we're consistently behind on paying our vendors. And now it's just a matter of working to rectify that.
Any other comments? I don't think we need to do anything on this one either, right, Charlie? Sure. Good enough. Next one is review, discussion, and possible action regarding the revised 2023 Port Arthur EDC board member schedule. Can I get a motion? Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. And discussion? Holidays. There you are. Joni, would you like to hit us on this one?
We just simply moved the two holidays that were in conflict was July 4th. We moved both holidays to the following Monday. So if everyone's in agreement with that, the September and the July were both moved to the following Mondays.
Vote? Got to vote?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passed.
And just as a reminder, when we move, and it's okay if they're moved, I mean, we need to do it. We don't need to be holding meetings in conflict with holidays, but just as a reminder that when they do get moved, my associate will be attending because I have conflicts when they get moved.
Okay. Next thing is a review, discussion, and possible action regarding the travel expense and reimbursement report for Port Arthur EDC CEO Terry Stokes. Can I get a motion? Got a motion? Second. To bring it to the floor. Any discussion? Mr. Stokes, the only thing I see. Go
Yeah,
for it.
in the past, and I'm sure a lot of people have attended conferences, usually the registration fee includes the luncheon and there's a $1,000 registration fee. Usually includes, I had wrote it down, can't find my notes. Oh, the dinner reception and a keynote luncheon, usually. And it could be a difference. But usually if you pay a $1,000 registration fee, in the past, I know conferences, and I'm sure Dr. Getwood and several of you, that is included.
And that was subtracted out under the,
So why you have what's the $35 for it?
Joni,
That was included, and when we do the per diems, we
Right.
prorate any expenses, like even when y'all just went to
Okay,
Golden
gotcha.
Triangle Days, we deleted breakfast, lunch from that day, so you had a lesser per diem.
Right.
Because it is covered
Okay.
under the registration fee.
Okay, thank you for that correction.
The only thing I had, Mr. Stokes, and I don't agree with it from the city, but it just sticks out like a red thumb to me. I got burned on this a couple of times, is your $5 tip. That's minor, but I'd rather stop it here than, just do something with it and let it go. I know that sounds stupid.
no,
I don't like it either. I got burnt quite a bit on tips, but
not a problem.
I didn't know this.
Well, it's kind of, I'm smiling because when I sat down for training, it was drilled in my head by them, make sure. So you think that you're following, let's be better safe than sorry. And
Was this something that this board can change without having to deal with them or deal with council? Because it's really, it is. When you're sitting down with professionals and here, you just know you're going to lose $15 or $20 right off.
yes, sir. Let me make sure I'm following what would be changed. I'm stressing that I don't want us to be seen as doing anything different from their policies for purchasing, accounts payable, so forth and so on. I think the confusion is that when I went to training, like I say, they drilled in my head, you make sure that you keep up adequate numbers, reasonable tips, so forth and so on. Don't be tipping somebody 50%, you know, so just bellhop helps you with your luggage. So I said, okay, I don't know any different. I'm in training. You tell me to do this, I'm writing notes. Now, if you all have run into trouble, regardless of what I had in training, let's go with that. Because you hit the nail on the head. Why bump our heads against it? Better safe than sorry. And it's
I
not
have
going
personally no problem with it at all, because like I said, I got burned at it many times, but that's just the way it is.
well,
You know, like you said, picking up luggage and tipping the person for going to get your car. I mean, you're going to tip them. So, and I spent like 20 and I didn't claim that. So, you know, I'm just.
not a problem.
So we don't
Better
need
safe than
anything on
sorry.
this either. I guess not. We're rolling.
I don't have any problem with the travel. One thing I want to ask, was there any key learning from the event that you will share with the board down the road?
Yes,
'Cause I'm
in
just curious.
fact, if you don't, Mr. President, if I could just beg
Yes.
1 minute, and I apologize, I'm going out of order. I missed this note. You've heard me mention a couple of times a mid-month report. It's getting to the point where I would keep you all night if we covered everything that I think in all of our hearts know we need to cover. So with your permission and blessing, what I'd like to do is, starting in April, because March is flying away, just start providing you a written update on things that either we covered, but we could maybe cover with a little more meat on the bone, or we didn't get to it all, or has come up since you last met. And a good use of that would be, hey, since we were all last together, I've attended this thing, and here's some things that I take away. Here's some relationships I established. Here's some partnerships that I think are going to be useful to us, so forth and so on. So that will be in that mid-month report.
That'll add more value to what the meeting was about.
Sure. But you could come with me.
And not only the CEO, but as board members, when we go to training,
Yeah,
there's
you
nothing
have
wrong
to
for
come
us
back
to
some
give
key
a report
learnings.
as well.
Because if you,
That's right. If you're paying, taxpayer money, we need to get a report as well.
yeah, key learnings.
So are you volunteering for gold? You know you walked into that.
I hope I didn't
I look
start
forward to your report on Golden Triangle Day. Let me know if I can help write that. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate you giving me that minute.
And next thing is, I made review discussion and possible action regarding the board. Moved it. We removed it. Okay.
So you're not going to let
I
me get
thought-
paid?
I thought
I don't mean no harm,
okay,
but I
okay.
thought you were just approving it with the amendment of removing the tip.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, okay. Can we
But you know-
get a vote?
Do we have to do a vision on the motion?
Well,
Amendment?
yeah, let's do a motion to amend it without the tip, and then a motion to approve it as amended.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve his expense report and remove the $5 tip from his report.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed. Motion passed. Okay, review, discussion, and possible action regarding the board submittal of a letter to the city manager requesting a financial presentation by the city's financial director requested by myself. Can I get a motion? And can I get a second? I got a motion and a second for any questions. What I had on this one, if I understood right in the agenda review, I would like to have her name Candy, I guess, financial director, come and have a discussion this meeting. And Mr. Stokes said he met with them Thursday morning and that we had to have a letter or some sort of
Sir, the city manager just requested a letter from the board requesting his staff's appearance, and then he'll go take it from there.
Right, and I did call the city manager a couple of minutes later after we got off to find out what I should put in this letter that y'all wouldn't have to be bothered with and y'all could just approve it. And he told me he didn't know what you was talking about. So maybe you could get back with him and talk to him about that, and then we could write this up next month.
Okay?
So we don't need nothing on that one either?
Well,
Charlie?
just
Oh,
a little clarification. Is he saying that he doesn't need a letter and he'll just make her available?
he just said he didn't know what you was talking about. So I just let it go, and I figured I was gonna talk to you this meeting.
My recommendation would be that we go ahead and proceed with the letter, okay, so that he has a formal request where we're requesting his staff to come and make a presentation to us. And then that way, if he need it, he can use it, and if he doesn't need it, so be it.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So, Mr. Stokes, can you write that up for us then?
Certainly.
Okay, good.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion passed. Review, discussion and possible action regarding the 10 strategic priorities that will serve as a foundation for the Port Arthur EDC high-level strategy plan. That would be Mr. Stokes. Yeah, can I get a motion? And motion second for discussion? Mr. Stokes?
Again, these are pending any changes. The best way to look at it, that these are the chapters of the strategic plan, if you will. 10 chapters plus supporting information and research. And again, I know I've said it ad nauseum, not necessarily my ideas. I don't necessarily disagree with anything, but I tried very hard to make sure I was listening to all of those stakeholders that you saw highlighted in green earlier. And I've tried to now capture that at a high level in terms of strategic priorities.
Need a vote? All in favor?
Yes.
All against? Motion passed. Future agenda items are requested on this report now, as of now. That's this one right here. We never do this.
Mr. President, I guess, and forgive me for interrupting, but I guess technically, pending the outcome of the presentation of the letter, then it would be a future item to have Ms. Daniel present to you all, and hopefully that would be in April.
Okay, good. Okay. It's,
Make a motion that we
7:50.
adjourn.
Motion adjourned.